Chris, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of a review of this the prior week's matchups, results, and the outlook going forward for each fantasy owner's team. Should be an interesting, way to get my take out there. You guys can hear my take. I get to talk a little bit about the games, my thoughts, and just kind of break everything down here so everyone gets a perspective on their fantasy team. And I just have fun doing this, so why not? And just a little full disclosure here, I did actually record this last night as well, but it was a little bit late, and my roommate was probably sleeping when I was recording it, so I didn't want to be too loud, and I didn't want to have my full voice. So, just for your guys' experience here, I thought I'd redo this so I can have my full voice and really kind of put everything in this and lay everything into this. So, I wanted to do it. So, let's just get started here. Let's just go through the matchups one by one, talk about the teams, talk about the results and the performances, and, we'll get a feel for the league so far. Obviously, this was the week one of the league of the Torolito Fantasy Football League with friends, and week one is sometimes, some people could say, the most exciting week. Everyone has really high expectations for their teams. Most people love the way they draft, and it doesn't really matter until the games start. It does not matter. It matters how your players play and how your team is post-draft, which is what really matters. That's what counts in the standings. So, with that being said, let's just jump into it and talk about some of these matchups here. So there's 6 matchups, obviously 12 people in the league. We'll start off with this matchup here. We had Return of the Mac, who is Mark, owned by Mark, against fucking Flutie Flakes. Excuse my language, Jake. Can you please change your name? I don't want to have to cuss every time I do this, but it's all good, dude. So, all right, Return of the Mac versus Flutie Flakes. And this first matchup, we had Mark scoring 114 points. We had Mark beating Jake by a little over 20 points here, or a little under, I should say, 20 points. And, Mark put up 114 this week. Let's take a look at the box score. But, Mark has a good team here. Basically what happened, I'm just going to say it straightforward. Tyreek Hill went off. Mark has Tyreek Hill on his team, and Tyreek Hill put up a hell of a performance. He scored almost 40 points this last week, and really not many people would expect that kind of performance out of Tyreek Hill. We all know he's explosive. We all know he's maybe the fastest, if not the fastest player in the NFL. But 38-plus points from a wide receiver, that is game-changing, and I'll tell you, it definitely did change this week's matchup against Jake. The score being 114 to 96.1, and that was the difference. If Hill puts up a mediocre performance, if he only puts up 10, 15 points here, Mark is actually looking at an L here. So Mark can really credit his success in week one pretty much all to Tyreek Hill. Aside from that, Phillip Rivers put up 28 points, the Chargers QB. Obviously a good total from your quarterback. That also helped. And it really made up for the poor performances he got from Fournette, who had 7, and Freeman, who also only had about 7 points. So, only 14 points coming out of his RB1 and RB2 slots, but a massive, almost 70-point performance from his QB and wide receiver 1 really propelled Mark. Other things to note here, Doug Baldwin from the Seattle Seahawks, was injured in this game, and he did not put up any points. So once again, Tyreek Hill and Phillip Rivers really carrying Mark to the week 1 win. Something to note here on Jake's side, who, by the way, Jake, welcome to the league. I know it's your first season, and I know it's not easy, and I know you're going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes, but I think you especially will, considering it's your first time playing. It's really not easy to be good at fantasy, and it's kind of like a learning effort. Once you play a few years, you'll really start to understand. Maybe you understand right now, but for most people, I know it takes a couple of years to kind of get really good at this game, which is not an easy game, but it's a fun game, I'll tell you that. But anyway, so going back to Jake's team, it was interesting this week because Jake had his Jay Ajayi, he had his team, and Jay Ajayi did play on Thursday. And Ajay had a great game for the Eagles, and Ajay put up almost 21 points as a running back. And looking at Jake's team, Ajay was actually on the bench for this game, and that was his really only player on Thursday. So, as you probably know, we had a little bit of smack talk in the group text there that, kind of nagged at Jake, telling him he probably should have started Ajay. So that was the thing. But looking at the score here, as Jake actually pointed out real time on Sundays during the games, that Joe Mixon had a great day on Sunday. Joe Mixon put up 23.4 points and actually outscored Ajay. So that really, actually, maybe even some could say that was a good move from Jake's part to put Mixon in over Ajay. Now the best play from Jake here would have been to put Ajay and Mixon in instead of McCoy, because Jake started McCoy and LaShawn McCoy only put up almost 3 points here. A really poor performance from a high pick. You really expect a lot more out of McCoy. But if Jake had started Ajay and Mixon in this matchup, then I think Jake actually would have won this game. So, that's obviously not an easy call, and not many people would make that call. But always you look in hindsight, like, who could I have started? And it looks like Jake, if he would have started Ajay and Mixon, then he would have won. Looking at other parts of his team, Jake also had Matt Ryan, who played Thursday, and Matt Ryan had a poor game. He only almost scored 9 points. It's not good from your quarterback. So that definitely didn't help him. It would have taken a great quarterback performance for Jake to win, but the 8.8 from Matt Ryan was not a good start for him, and he really kind of had an uphill battle, also considering Ajay's 20 points, on the bench. Other than that, Antonio Brown had a great game. He had an Antonio Brown game. He had almost 20 points. Golden Tate had a good game it was the Monday night game, which, Jake was actually down a lot going into that game, but, Tate definitely did have a good game. He almost had 18 points. That was a good game. Doyle, decent game with 8 almost, and Devin Funchess, kind of a mediocre to below average game with almost 6 points. So it looks like, here, barring an extremely savvy running back play, really Jake didn't have much of a chance, but, obviously, rooting for you, Jake. It's your first year. Hope you do well. Hope you have fun this year. But Mark did come away with the win. So Mark goes to 1-0, and Jake goes to 0-1 to start the season. All right, so moving on to the next matchup here. We're going to go with a really interesting matchup. We have Patrick's Luck of the Giants versus Adam's Bang Gang. And just taking a look at this score, this was also an interesting game, matchup here, because it looks like basically Patrick absolutely put up a ton of points this week. And looking into it, Patrick basically owns the entire Saints on his team. Not really, but he has the best, some could say the best 3 players in the Saints, and that's really what propelled him in this matchup. Patrick has Breeze. He has Alvin Kamara, who he probably took. Actually, I know he took probably with his number 1 pick in the draft, and he also has Michael Thomas, who some say was the wide receiver 1 going into this week 1 in the NFL season from a fantasy perspective. And just a little, just to give you insight on these players here and how they did. Breeze, Kamara, and Thomas together scored about 100 points. Only them, those 3 players, 100 combined between those players. And really, that in itself will do it to you. That will give you a win most of the time. So, Adam really had a deep hole, and he was down early because these were the 10 a.m. games. This was a 10 a.m. game. The New Orleans versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game was 10 a.m. So early on in the day, Adam looked really bad here. He looked in a bad position, and Patrick looked absolutely amazing. What's interesting, though, is that actually Adam had a comeback. He really gave it his all. His players almost even brought it all the way back. And the final score here being 131.9, almost 132 for Adam for Patrick, versus Adam's 126 point total almost. And yeah, that's a close game. That's a 6-point game right there, and it could have, Adam almost made the comeback. So just looking into Patrick's team, he had a great day out of his Saints players. Alex Collins, not so much. Alex Collins, just over 6 points here. You don't really want that from your running back. RB2, it's not bad, but it could be a lot better. T.Y. Hilton with a decent game, 13.1 points. A big injury note for Patrick, who lost his tight end, Delaney Walker, with I believe an ankle injury, who's on IR. So it looks like he's going to miss the rest of the season. And looking at Patrick's team, it's not that he's actually going to need a tight end here either. It looks like he has Jordan Reed, who obviously everyone knows Jordan Reed is one of the top fantasy tight ends here, and he's on Patrick's team, and he was actually on Patrick's bench, and actually he outscored Walker this week, so it would have been a better play for Patrick to play Jordan Reed, but obviously he still got the win, so it wasn't that big a deal. But yes, Patrick's prospects going forward from the tight end position aren't in that much jeopardy because of his depth on his bench. Going forward here, it looks like Patrick played Chris Hogan as well, who a lot of people know had a pretty bad week, pretty bad game. He only had 1.6 points, almost 2 points from Chris Hogan. And, you definitely weren't expecting that. You're expecting a little more considering the Patriots kind of don't really have many receivers right now. So you think that Chris Hogan would get a lot of targets and a lot of catches and points, but he didn't really do that this week. Looking back at the New England game, a lot of the targets and a lot of the points obviously went to Gronk, who we'll talk about later, and Philip Dorsett, and James White had a touchdown catch as well. But Chris Hogan did not score that many points this week for Patrick, and that's a player you're definitely going to look at going forward to see if he starts to perform well or if he continues this kind of trend, which obviously it's only 1 week, but you still kind of have a little bit of concern, but also optimism there considering the actual makeup of the Patriots offense. Patrick didn't play his defense, which turned out to be a dumb decision because they put up 9 points. And as we all know, guys, there is a placement for the top point total that the number one scoring team gets paid out in this league. I'm pretty sure. I believe so. So you want to get those points, and it secured the win because as we know, defenses can put up negative points, but it's almost kind of a rare occasion. And the Lions, even though they gave up 48 points, they still scored 9 as a fantasy defense. So yeah, it's kind of a rare occasion that negative happens, and especially to the tune of -6. But some people would call it that way, some people would call it the other way. Nonetheless, an amazing week from Patrick, scoring 131. From Adam's perspective, he was messing with Melvin Gordon, who had a good game, 23 points. Patrick Mahomes, who really kind of led the comeback for Adam's team, had almost 30 points here. Good total from his quarterback, who you don't really know what you're totally going to get from him because he's kind of a new player, a new quarterback, and so it's good to see on Adam's end that Patrick Mahomes put up almost 30 points. In addition to that, Adam has Christian McCaffrey in this game, but as we all know, due to an infamous trade, he actually will be no longer available to Adam because he's going to be on Oscar's team due to the Le'Veon Bell trade, which we'll get into a little bit more later. Other than that, Royce Freeman had a decent game, 7.1 points, and Emmanuel Sanders definitely had a good game as well. So when it comes down to it, Patrick and Adam both scored high, but Patrick edged Adam by a little over 6 points, giving Patrick the 1-0 record and leaving Adam with the 0-1. All right, so that's that matchup, and let's move on to the next one. Okay, now we have the good hands. I gotta make sure I'm recording. Okay, great. I am recording, guys. This is all being recorded. This is good. So, we have the Good Hands matchup versus Pittsburgh Feelers. Nick Dudo versus Timmy Franks. And obviously, Nick is the commissioner. We had to give him respects for that. But just getting into this matchup here, I don't think Nick had a very good day. I don't think he's very happy with his performance. I know I've personally spoken with Nick, and he said he's pretty happy about his draft, but 83.5, I know he's not happy about that. And, Timmy came up with almost 118 points, so Timmy did, in fact, win this matchup. And let's kind of look at what happened with Nick's team, where it could have kind of improved, where it could have been better. What really sticks out to me, as we were just kind of talking about this a little bit, that Nick actually played the Saints defense, which gave up one of the more interesting quarterback performances in the last couple of years, actually, to Ryan Fitzpatrick, who absolutely just ran over the Saints defense all day. When I mean run, he actually threw all over them. Ryan Fitzpatrick had a great game, and it definitely led to the Saints actually putting up -9 as their point total in this week. So that's not a good start for Nick. That was an early game. Definitely Nick's in the bad area in the beginning of the day. -9 is not going to help you, especially when defenses can put up 5, 10, or 20 points sometimes. So that definitely put Nick off to a bad start. Other thing that kind of sticks out here for Nick is that, for his two running backs, his RB1 and RB2 combined, they put up exactly 13 points. And that's not a total you really want from both of your running backs. Maybe from one of them it's okay, but Kareem Hunt scoring 4.9 and Kenyon Drake with 8.1. And Nick obviously spent two very high picks in the draft on these two players, and he wants them to perform, but they didn't really perform this week. So that is also a factor and an effect of why he scored kind of so low this week. Just looking at it now, the problem though is that even if Nick had an effective defense starting for him in fantasy perspective, let's say they put up 10 points, that gives Nick an extra 19 points. He's still going to be down by quite a bit of points here to Timmy, who had a good week, to be honest. So Nick needed more than just a good defense in order to come back here. Taking a look at his bench, I think where Nick could have actually won this game is if he had put in a better defense or better, more higher scoring defense. And also, if he played Austin Eckler, who put up 21.1 points on Nick's bench. So if you would put in Eckler instead of Kareem Hunt and a random in some sort of defense who scored 10 points, then you're looking at a close game coming down to the wire. But obviously, just a difficult call to make, putting in a guy like Eckler, who some kind of would say is a backup over Kareem Hunt. But on that topic, Austin Eckler is looking like an amazing fantasy play. He's had some good numbers last season, going into this season as well. A lot of people like him, and putting up this 21 point total definitely gives owners of Austin Eckler a lot of hope going forward, that he can be a consistent fantasy producer each week. And so we might probably see some starts out of Austin Eckler from Nick. So, keep an eye on that going forward. Obviously Melvin Gordon is in the backfield as well, who's a top-tier player in fantasy. But Eckler can also be productive as well. So definitely something to keep an eye on going forward. On Timmy's side, he put up almost 118 points. So really evenly spread out throughout his team. His number one draft pick, Saquon Barkley. Interesting game from Saquon, kind of a decent game until one. I think it was like a 59, 60-yard run for a touchdown. Really changed his day. Saquon ended up putting 19.8 points on the board. And that is, a really, really good point total for a running back. It's what you would want from your running back. But just keep in mind, it was a bulk of it was just on one play, which, that doesn't discredit him at all. But some people say that Saquon is the kind of guy who makes his money off those type of plays. So, you know, as a first round draft pick of a rookie, you have a little bit of concern because this guy hasn't played a snap in a regular season NFL game. But to have him put up this 19.8 total, it's very reassuring, and a lot of people like Saquon a lot. So, you know, you don't know what you're going to get, but just from this performance, it looks good going forward. And, you know, I think Timmy's probably happy about that pick. Moving on, you know, Tom Brady, 21.2 points. Thielen at 13, a little over 13. Allen Robinson, who was targeted a ton by Trubisky in the Chicago Green Bay game. He only put up 8.1 points, but definitely reassuring there that, you know, Trubisky likes Allen Robinson, it seems, and he'll probably get quite a few targets going forward with the Bears. Rob Gronkowski, 19.8 points total. You know, he looked absolutely unstoppable in that game. You know, the Patriots, as mentioned prior, don't have many options on offense with Edelman out and you know, all the other things going on there. And Gronkowski looks like he's going to get a ton of work. He looks, honestly, watching this game myself, I really think that Gronkowski could have gotten more than this 19.8 total. And going forward, I would think that Gronk is just going to absolutely outscore all of these other people here. This is going to be a really fun thing to watch. You know, obviously one thing to keep in mind is that Gronk does get injured sometimes. So, you know, as long as he stays healthy, I think Timmy's really going to like what he gets out of his tight end position. That being said, you know, Timmy had a good week. Chris Carson, 7.4. His Titans D, 11 points. Pretty much even across the board. Nothing too crazy from Timmy's end, but not really any bad performances, I think, from Timmy. I'm pretty sure, it looks like his lowest scoring point total was 6 from his kicker, Will Lutz, which you'll probably take that. Like, that means that all your players are doing well, and at least scoring, you know, medium range. So overall, a good performance from Timmy's team, week 1. And he comes out with the victory against Nick to bring him to 1-0. And, of course, Nick falls to 0-1 on this young season. All right, moving on to the next matchup. Let's take a look at my matchup, which was, my team is Jen Burkhead. And that's by me, Chris Guitry. If you didn't know, that's me. What's up, guys? And also Bryce. I played against Bryce this week, and his team is Fly Eagles Fly. And really the story with Bryce's team this week is that, you know, he likes the Eagles. Oh, not really even this week. It's kind of all season long, maybe. It's not a surprise or a secret that Bryce likes Eagles, and his team kind of reflects that. And, you know, Bryce had Nelson Aguilar, and he had Zach Ertz. I should really kind of say the outcome of this match before I go into it, but just to preface it, guys, I did beat Bryce. I had 114 points, and Bryce put up just over 95 points on the week, giving me the win. But just looking at Bryce's team here a little bit, you know, and just talking about the matchup, you know, a couple of Bryce's players were in the Thursday night game, so kind of got a bit of idea of how the week would go early on in the week. And, you know, Aguilar and Ertz put up, looked a little over 16 points combined out of those two players. And so when I saw that, I actually was kind of confident because, you know, as an opposing manager to that, I would be happy with those two putting up 16 points. And I'm pretty sure going forward, that combo there is going to put up more than 16 points per week, most likely. So I think I got pretty lucky in that situation. You know, after the Thursday night game, I thought, you know, I have a pretty good chance to win this. You know, obviously anything can happen on Sunday, but I like the way that it had started. And so another part about Bryce's team, which I watched directly, was that Bryce has Odell Beckham Jr. And let me tell you, you know, so just start off, OBJ scored 16.5 points this week, but watching OBJ play with the Giants was amazing. This guy is absolutely insane. He's all over the field. He's faster than everyone. He's like, his hands are just insane. Definitely was very scary, and there was a lot of yelling going on at my TV this week about how please don't. I was just asking the quarterback through the monitor, do not throw the ball to OBJ, because this guy was, it seemed like at any given play he could take it, 20 yards, 25 yards. And I was very lucky that he didn't come away with any touchdowns. I think the 16.5 point total that OBJ put up was, I think he could have scored a lot more this week. And I'm pretty sure that, honestly, going forward, that OBJ is going to have some monster games, and that opposing managers of Bryce are really going to be scared, or they're going to be sorry watching these giant games, man, because OBJ looked like a force, and a lot of positivity there going for Bryce there going forward, going that way. But other parts of Bryce's team that kind of let down a little bit. We see that Dalvin Cook and Kerryon Johnson. Now, Cook had a decent game. He scored 10.5 points, but Kerryon Johnson only 5.2. And you don't want that from your running back. You kind of need more from your running backs in that standpoint. Matt Stafford only put up 7.6 points this last week, which is really honestly a terrible point total for a quarterback. I'm pretty sure I had this. I was pretty confident going into Sunday night and Monday, but I actually had some poor performances on Monday, and actually Bryce could have taken this game. I only won by 20 points, which is kind of a lot, but kind of in fantasy not that much. So I think Bryce could have potentially come back and got me here, but it just didn't happen from Stafford. Demaryius Thomas, though, was a bright spot for Bryce. Demaryius Thomas put up 15.3 points, and that's definitely a good point total for a receiver, especially coming out of your flex spot. And the Ravens D, Bryce started them for 17 points. But going to the other side, looking at my team, I was the winner this week. I felt pretty good about it. What's interesting here is that I put up 114 points, but really my top scorers this week, guys, were two guys that I picked up off waivers, and that is Tyrod Taylor, who put up 22.7 points, and the infamous James Conner, who I love, man. I loved watching him, and he put up 31.7 points. These two guys I got off waivers basically in the time between the draft and week 1, and they really did it for me. They basically got me this win, and I appreciate that. And it makes me feel good. But watching Tyrod, honestly, he looked pretty bad in the beginning of the game, and his stats really reflect that. His stats were I think he completed under 40% of his passes, which is pretty terrible, but he's still able to put up 22.7 points, which is apparently what you get with Tyrod. I've never been a Tyrod owner in the past, but I guess this is how he does it. He scored a touchdown running, and it's cool to have a guy like Taylor on your team who no one really kind of likes him, but he puts up points. I heard something somewhere that he's been in the top 7 of fantasy quarterbacks scoring point wise in the last 3 years, or 3 times out of the last 4 years, something like that. And so it just goes to show that there's definitely value at the waiver wire, and I'm happy, and it's good I was able to pick him up. He really helped me. And then James Conner absolutely killed the game on Sunday. With all the drama going on with Le'Veon Bell, he really just did not give a shit, and he ran to the tune of 2 touchdowns and 115 yards or so, which is awesome. And I'm really happy to have him on my team. So those 2 players really kind of set the tone for me. Those were the early games, and I really kind of felt confident going forward with that. Keenan Allen had a great day, 20.8 points. DeAndre Hopkins, he actually didn't have a good day from what I saw, but just watching the game, but he still put up almost a little over 11 points, and I'll take that in an off day as my wide receiver 1. I hope going forward he puts up way more points. I really would like that. It'd be good. But other than that, kind of actually weak going down the line. Trey Burton didn't do too well, which I actually thought Burton was going to do very well on Sunday night. He started the way that Trubisky looked in the beginning of the game. It made me really feel confident about Burton. Trubisky was throwing bullets down the field. He was throwing little seeds to everyone, like just getting in tight windows and completing passes. I think he was like 9 out of 10 completing passes at one point. But we all kind of know how that went. He definitely didn't look as good going in the second half and moving forward after that. And Burton kind of took the brunt of that as well. He kind of directly related to Trubisky's performance. So him and then Cooper also did not have a good game. So I need these guys to step up. Just my personal opinion on my team. I kind of want to stay objective here, but yeah. Either way, the final score of the game was 114 to 95.3. I came away with the win. Bryce falls to 0-1. He has the loss. As we move on to our next matchup. All right, so for our next matchup, we're going to talk about the Zeke is going to eat, led by Ari, versus Gurley's Gone Wild. Looks like a name change gone here. A name change here. I know. Yesterday there was a different name from Deebs for his team. It was some kind of weird name, like just basically the name of the player. But now he's changed it to a kind of a fun name here. Gurley's Gone Wild. But I like this, man. Now I wonder, did you Google this or did you actually make this up yourself? Yeah, either way, points here, man. That's pretty cool. Dude. I like the name. So let's look at the box score. By the way, it's interesting to note that Deebs put up a massive 149.2 points this week, beating Ari, who put up also a good, not a bad point total, 112.1. So, but Deebs, who was really the beneficiary of some amazing performances on Monday night, I should say overall, he had a great Monday. Who really kind of scored. He scored a ton of points on Monday night, and I believe, I'm not entirely sure, but I think he was down coming into that game, into those games. I think he was losing to Ari before the start of the Jets against the Lions game. So really a great Monday night. I don't think he could have asked for a better one from Deebs because he comes away with what it looks like it's so far the highest point total out of any manager this week, 149.2, and that is nothing to joke or mess around with. 149.2 will win you a week pretty much almost a lot of times, if not every time. It should be interesting to see if anyone kind of tops that this year, and actually I would say probably someone will, but still, 149.2, very respectable point total here. Just looking into it, and we talked about the Monday night game, how those games, how they kind of really fueled Deep's point total. But Mike Evans, 24.2 points this week, definitely benefited from the Ryan Fitzpatrick coming out party when Fitzpatrick, like I said, just threw over everybody. But Mike Evans was one of those guys that caught those balls, and he scored 24.2, and really a great week for Mike Evans. Kind of an up and down season last year. Like kind of a mediocre year, honestly. I actually owned Mike Evans last year, and I did do very well. I made it to the playoffs, got second, got to the championship game, but Evans wasn't my guy. Like Evans didn't really do it for me totally as I thought he was going to. So, but this week looks like Evans really kind of showed up, put up a great point total. And, just looking at Deep's team, pretty consistent here. Like he's got almost all of his guys in double digits. In fact, every player and position on his team had double digits this week for Deebs, except for Travis Kelce, who had a 1.1 point total. And whether it's a new quarterback in Kansas City or maybe because Travis Kelce is getting older, that could be accounting for his low point total. Or maybe it's just one of those weeks where he just doesn't score, and going forward he'll pick it up. Who knows? Kind of remains to be seen there. Kelce was one of the top tight end picks this year, so people would assume he's going to do well, but you never really know with this kind of game. So it should be interesting to watch going forward. But other than that, Deebs, based on his name, obviously we know he's got Gurley, who he picked with. I think he had the number one pick, yeah, and he used that for Gurley, who put up a little over 22 points, and that's obviously a great game. You want that from your running back, and you're just happy with that. Marshawn Lynch, who interesting character, but he had a good game. He had an amazing run, scoring a touchdown for the Raiders. really kind of 2012 or 13 or whatever, reminiscent of his beast mode runs. I mean, basically just would not stop until he got into the end zone, and it was just insane watching like 10 guys just pile on to Marshawn, but he did not care, and he just kept on running, and he got a little help from his own guys pushing him, but you don't see that normally. Watching football, like, you don't see guys just move the pile like 5-10 yards like Lynch did. So, he's obviously a really special guy, getting up there in age. So, you don't really know, but, also has some injury issues and some character issues, kind of questionable. But, other than that, you love that. You love the guy. You love to have him on your team as long as he's producing. And he pretty much kind of produced there this week, 11.9 points. Not bad. Better than most running backs this week. So, not bad from Lynch. Isaiah Crowell is the kind of guy that, like, not really anyone drafted. Just kind of taking a look at his draft position this year. Let's see if I can find that. Drafted 72 overall. That's later round in the draft, at 6th round. Obviously not a guy that you think's gonna have like just breakout performances every week. But he put up 22.2 points this week against Detroit. Maybe that was a product of the Detroit defense or the game flow. New York. They won 48-17. So definitely a lot of running opportunities for Crowell there. Not a kind of guy you'd expect to repeat these kind of performances, but if he does do that, you're happy about it, and certainly Deebs will be happy about it if he continues. Moving on, something interesting here that Deebs has Zerline, the kicker, who put up 16 points this week. And I had Zerline last year, man. And let me tell you, that guy won me games. He won me some games. Like, I think like a good 2 or 3 games, which is the difference in a fantasy season, were won by my kicker, Greg Zerline, who now is on Deeb's teams. Honestly, I wish I would have got him, because this guy absolutely kicks, man. He absolutely fucking kicks, dude, because he just gets points after point. And for some reason, the Rams just put him in a position to score each week, whether it's just their offense or like their personnel. But it seems to always be kicking like 5 field goals, and he doesn't miss any of them either. So, obviously a great player for Deebs. Deebs looking really strong here. So far we've gone through almost all the matchups. The top 2 teams we've seen so far, kind of just breaking it down. Looks like Deebs and Pat, the Giant, Luck of the Giants. Those are the 2 kind of standouts right now. Obviously, from week to week, it can change. But right now, those guys are looking like the number 1 scoring teams. They are the number 1 scoring teams, 1 and 2 respectively. So, looking to the other side of the coin, we had Ari on this matchup as well. And, Ari is obviously a fantastic fantasy manager, really experienced and seasoned veteran of playing fantasy sports. Love Ari. He did come away with a loss here, but he actually put up 112.1 points, which would give him the win against at least a few fantasy managers this week. So obviously not a terrible performance. You're not totally bummed about it, 112 points, but obviously didn't come away with the win. So could be happier. Then again, you're going up against Deebs in this matchup. There's not much you can do. But either way, just kind of looking at his team, pretty consistent on the board. His lowest point totals were from his tight end, Benjamin Watson, who had 6.4, and his wide receiver 2, Marvin Jones Jr., who had 7.4. Other than that, kind of consistent across the board. Alex Smith, 19.4 points. Not bad. Ezekiel Elliott, 16.1 points. That's okay. You kind of expect a little more from Elliott here, but, that you're all right with 16.1. I'd be all right with 16.1 from a running back. Hopefully, if you want to win these big games, you got to get these huge games from your RBs, but didn't happen there. 16.1, though, you can't be that bad about it. You can't be sad about it. Jordan Howard, 13.2 points, not bad. AJ Green, 16.2. I know AJ Green had a fumble, which affected his point total a little bit here. But yeah, Lamar Miller, 11. Eagles D, 11. Robbie Gould, also 11. So, just definitely a consistent game from Ari's team. Nothing too much. But what can you do there? What can you really do? You put up a good lineup and you just didn't. You ran up against an just insane player in Evans and Gurley and Crowell. They just absolutely, just had great games. Nothing really could do there, but definitely interesting to see that Deebs has got a really good team, and as well mentioned before, we saw that Another team in this league is looking pretty good as well, Pat. But yeah, going forward here, guys, we got one more matchup to do. I'll just recap that one actually. Once again, Deebs, the winner, going 1-0, scoring 149.2 points, and Ari falling to 0-1 with 112.1 points. All right, so our last matchup here of the day, we had Delaney Whitewalker, who's from O's Tuna, which I believe is Oscar, and we have Crimea Rivers, Max Fishman. And it looks like in this game, Max came away with the win, scoring 111.6 points against Oscar's 98.5 points. And definitely some interesting, it's very interesting on Oscar's side here. I mean, Oscar had some bad luck so far this season, and also some questionable moves. I'll talk about that in a second. But just to start off with that luck, not Andrew Luck. I'm talking about the luck of his team here. He lost Jerick McKinnon for the season. So Jerick McKinnon was one of Oscar's top picks, and obviously a running back one, running back two, running back two, kind of. But definitely don't want to see that. Is a torn ACL, and he's out for the year. So bye-bye, Jerick McKinnon. Yeah, it's terrible. You never want to have that happen. It always does happen, though. And, so this is whatever. What are you going to do about it? But, he lost a great player. So he's definitely down right there. And then later on in the week, we had Oscar trade Le'Veon Bell to Adam's team for Christian McCaffrey, and also some wide receivers got involved there. But mainly the trade was Le'Veon Bell for Christian McCaffrey. And yeah, obviously I know that Le'Veon Bell is holding out. He's not playing right now. He's not in an NFL team. He's not suited up. He wasn't even at the game on Sunday. But I don't think this was a good trade, just because I think that Le'Veon Bell is a top tier player. He's better than almost every running back. And when you trade him for a guy like McCaffrey, I think that Bell's question mark of being able to play or playing for the next couple weeks, it doesn't offset the difference in skill or production you're going to get from Bell to McCaffrey. There could be a few running backs, in my opinion, that would offset that skill, like maybe like a Melvin Gordon, or like obviously a Todd Gurley, and maybe like a Saquon Barkley. But I don't believe that holdout really offsets that production you're going to get from Bell. So I didn't agree with the trade. Obviously it's Oscar's team, and he does what he wants, and he makes decisions he thinks will be the best, for his team going forward. But if I was in his position, I would not have made that trade, or maybe I would have made it for someone else. But that being said, it remains to be seen who the winner of that trade will be. We don't know what the outcomes are. For all we know, Le'Veon Bell could not play ever again, and McCaffrey could start killing it and become an MVP. So that's the thing with trades. You don't know what the outcome is until a little bit. You don't know until really the end of the season, really, or later on in the year, until you have an idea. And with the keeper league, it could go even longer. Although I don't think either player is actually able to keep those running backs due to their draft order. I think the rules state that players have to be at least drafted in the fourth round or higher, or I should say lower, to have them as keepers, which, by the way, is a fun fact for all you guys who didn't know about that or read the rules. I suggest if you have read the rules, I suggest you do read the rules. I actually didn't do that till later, just actually a few days ago. Actually, it really helped me, I think, to get my knowledge of the keeper league up. Just a fun little factor, a little helper there. Anyway, so obviously some interesting plays and interesting transactions with Oscar's team this year so far. Other than that, he also kind of faced some more injuries. I think, Marquise Goodwin, the number one wide receiver for San Francisco, he's on Oscar's team. He got hurt in the game on Sunday. He scored 0 points. So more injuries there. And then even on top of this, after all that's happened with Oscar, did you guys know that Oscar has Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback? Wow. So we all know what happened. Pretty sure all of us know what happened in that Sunday night game. It looked like Rodgers was going to be out for a while. He hurt his knee. He went off on a cart. When guys go off on carts, you don't see them for the rest of the year sometimes, and most of the time, actually. So to all much of my surprise, Rodgers came back in very shortly. He definitely looked like he had a limp. Definitely affected his way he was throwing, but it didn't affect his fantasy output or his point total. I don't think. What's really kind of weird about this game, like awkward, it was super weird, but Rodgers I think did better in the second half with his weak knee than he did in the first half. But all of that being said, Rodgers put up a 24.5 point total of this week number 1, which is good for any quarterback. Not a fantastic Ryan Fitzpatrick-esque game, but it's still a good total, and you like that, your quarterback. And going down the line, Chris Thompson, 21.8 points. Brandon Cooks had 11.8, and kind of fell off from there. But Oscar's 98.5 point total was a little over, let's just say about like 14 points off from beating Max. And it looks like really the lack of production came from Marquise Goodwin, who scored 0 points. Bilal Powell, running back issue there for Oscar, only 7 points. Not a terrible game, but you definitely want better there. And lastly, Jordy Nelson, who scored only 3.8 points per game in this game, actually. And a lot of concerns from Jordy Nelson there in Oakland, and just his kind of his flow of his career. It seems like he's towards the end of it, and you don't know if he's as fast as he used to be, or if he's as strong as he used to be, or if he's as powerful. All those things combined, all those intangibles. But yeah, so definitely some weak spots or weak, low upside there, I think, from Oscar's team, which kind of led to his loss there. 98.5, not the worst point total, but I think you probably have to score more in this half PPR league in order to get the win. Speaking of win, let's move on. Let's talk about Max's team and kind of break down his win here. Max had a pretty good day across the board. Most of his team did pretty well. Cam Newton, 17.8 points, not bad. David Johnson, 15.2. David Johnson got actually a bad day until he had a garbage time touchdown, which is actually the only touchdown that the Arizona Cardinals scored on the day. But nonetheless, it went to David Johnson, which is good for Max. 15.2 points for David Johnson. Surprising Adrian Peterson with 21.6 points. And definitely not many people expected that. Peterson now playing for Washington. A lot of people kind of counted Peterson out. Just taking a look at his draft, what his draft pick was, what pick it was, 94th overall. I mean, that's the 8th round. If you're going to get 21 points or 21.6 points out of your 94th pick, I mean, you're pretty happy about that. It looks like it's Max's running back 2, and 21.6 points is not a bad point total from a running back at all. I'll take that all the time. So yeah, good for Max there. Adrian Peterson looks good. We don't know if it'll continue, but so far it looks pretty good. Going down, you have Devontae Adams, 17.3 points. Larry Fitzgerald, 11.1. Wide receivers doing decent. Obviously good games there. Fitzgerald, kind of old. If you're giving the decision, if you were to say, Chris, do you want to draft Fitzgerald or do you want to draft a different receiver? I would say I would draft someone else, just because Fitzgerald is so old, and it's just at some point, he's just not gonna be able to make plays. He's not gonna do as well as he does, and maybe obviously there are a few guys out there who that just doesn't affect, like Tom Brady. Doesn't matter. He's still playing well even when he's in his 40s, and I think guys like Randy Moss and other guys who they're just like, it doesn't matter how old they are, they just continue playing well. Maybe Fitzgerald is one of those guys, but based on like the odds, like the numbers, like you would think that like at one of these times, like Fitzgerald would not, one of these years, he would not do well. And I know Fitzgerald was mulling retirement over the offseason, so kind of that's what kind of led me away from him. But nonetheless, 11.1 points from Fitzgerald, a good day. Looking at Max's tight end situation, looks like Greg Olsen is actually out, and I think also, speaking of guys contemplating retirement, I think Olsen was thinking about hanging it up as well. I know he's had injury problems with that foot. I think that's what he injured as well. So the same injury in the same foot. I think it was the same foot. So, I mean, for all we know, that might be it for Olsen's career. But either way, Max doesn't have a tight end right now. It looks like Olsen's out, and he was in a boot on the sideline during that game, so it probably won't be playing for at least the next couple of weeks, if not longer. So, Max needs a tight end. Max has David Njoku on his bench, the Cleveland tight end, but can you really expect that much out of a Cleveland tight end? So, definitely it could be a weak spot going forward for Max. Cooper Kupp. This is the kind of guy I wish I kind of would have got. Apparently, Cooper Kupp just was really good last year at the end of the year. And then last night, he looked great, too. He was just all over the field, catching balls. And he put up 15.3 points. Not an insane game, but, you'd think that he's probably going to score more at some point in the season. You could see him having just a great, 2-touchdown game for sure sometime. So, yeah, definitely a guy you want on the team. Definitely a great flex spot, flex play there. You want a guy like Cooper Kupp in your flex. That's a great flex right there. Good for Max. Max is looking like a good team, but there was a downside for his team this week, which was playing the Chargers defense. And what the fuck are you doing, man? As for San Diegans, man, you're supposed to just hate the Chargers. Now, I'll tell you this. I have Keenan Allen on my team, and I like Keenan Allen. But I actually didn't even really mean to draft him, to be honest. But I just want to say this, man. From my perspective, man, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but I don't like how the Chargers left, and because of that, I don't support them anymore. And it was kind of weird. It's kind of weird watching the game. I did watch the Chargers-Chiefs game, and it's you watch these players. Dude, I have owned a Rivers jersey. I owned I would definitely own a Gates jersey. I bought my girlfriend once a Eric Weddle jersey. So I used to love the Chargers, man. But seeing those players out there, it's just it's numb, man, for me. I don't know how to put it, but I definitely don't. I don't root for them. I definitely don't like them. It's so cool to see that there's only 20,000 people at their stadium, and it's funny because it's funny comparing it, man, because you look at the field, the StubHub Stadium, whatever they're playing right now, and it's they played against the Chiefs this week at quote-unquote home. And there was so much damn red in the stands. It seemed like there was more red than there was white and blue. And it's just wow. No one really gives a shit about the Chargers. And it makes me think, is it possible that they come back? Is this an experiment? Hopefully, it probably wasn't intended on being an experiment by Dean Spanos to see, are we going to get ticket sales? Are we going to get interest in the team? But hopefully he starts to see it as, wow, there's no fucking interest for this team right now. And I hope what would be the best case scenario for me, and what as a former Charger fan, is that Dean Spanos sells the team to some guy and moves him to San Diego, and hopefully that guy who moves him to San Diego is liked and respected and is well connected and all these things, and he actually gets them a damn stadium. That would be cool, man. And obviously, I probably shouldn't be talking like this because I think for the next few years we're gonna see the Chargers, at least few, but probably more. But they're gonna be the LA Chargers. But it just makes me think would that happen? Could it happen? I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, off my damn tangent. Back to this matchup. Max did win 111.6 to 98.5. And, Max, like I said, great game there by Max. Chargers D, -3 points. That was really his blemish there. Don't play the Chargers, man. Just don't do it, buddy. All right, going back down the list, it kind of looks like, for Max's team, Max has Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram obviously suspended right now. He still has 3 games left to serve on his suspension. When he comes back, Max will have definitely a situation for his running back corpse. What he's going to do, because he looks like he has 2 viable starters here, and he's going to get a third in a few games. All right, at least. All right, so with that being said, guys, that is the rundown and recap review of the matchups of Week 1. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is coming to be about an hour long, and to anyone who listens to this, anyone who actually listens to this all the way to the end, I appreciate you and I applaud you for staying in here for so damn long. And if you guys actually did listen to this at the end, do me a favor, guys. Just go in the group chat and text the word pickle. Just say pickle in the group chat. Just say pickle in the group chat, just so I know you guys listened that long. But yeah, if you didn't, whatever. If you didn't, then you're not even hearing this, so it doesn't matter. But, with that being said, with all the matchups, let's just recap the winners real quick, run down the list of the teams that are 1-0. It is not easy to go 1-0 in fantasy football, and for all the people who've done that, you all get a shout out. So we'll start off. Number 1, Jen Burkhead, led by Chris Gittrey, 1-0. Max Fishman and his Crimey Rivers, 1-0. Deebs DiBiase, Girlie's Gone Wild, also 1-0. Pittsburgh Feelers from Timmy Franks, 1-0. Luck of the Giants by Patrick, 1-0. And finally, Return of the Mac by Mark Felonk, 1-0. Those are the 6 1-0 teams. Congratulations to you guys. Best of luck in the next week, and best of luck to everyone who loves fantasy football. I love fantasy football, and it was nice talking with you guys, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace out.